Hello and welcome to this short presentation about management supervision, which has been produced by North Staff's Combined Healthcare Trust in August 2015. The aim of the presentation is to inform you about the introduction of guidelines for managers in relation to the supervision meetings that they will be having with their staff. The session will explain why these guidelines have been introduced and where they can be accessed, and also what they say. We will also explain some of the skills needed for a good management supervision session. Before you start the session, you might need to provide for yourself a piece of paper and a pen so that you can jot down some of the key thinking points that occur to you as we're going through. Start by setting the context within which these management supervision guidelines have been created. A review of supervision in its widest context forms part of the Listening into Action project that's currently underway in Combined Healthcare. As you probably already know, Listening into Action is a process by which we listen to staff and encourage them to identify priority projects and then work together to make improvements in these areas. Supervision has been identified as one of these priority projects because of its importance in governance, in quality assurance, in providing support for staff, and in helping staff to maintain their well-being. What we're going to be talking about in today's session will build largely on existing good practice. So what do we mean by management supervision? I'd like you to just take a few seconds to think about how you would define management supervision. Just think about that now. Okay, is everybody ready to look at some of the suggestions that we've had when we've done face-to-face sessions? People have told us that they use lots of different terms to describe this common process. You might know it as a one-to-one with your manager. You might call it a manager catch-up. You might use the term caseload management, which is indeed part of management supervision. I'd like you to take a few seconds now to think about something else. How does this happen in your area? Just take a few seconds to think about that now. What others have told us is that in some cases, team leaders may be providing supervision for all the members of the team. In other areas, and particularly where teams are larger, this provision of management supervision may be distributed throughout many layers of the team, depending on role. For some people we spoke to, they distinguished the fact that part of this supervision may be provided outside of the team, particularly where we have a member of staff who is managed by somebody who comes from a different professional group than they do themselves. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation. The people who came to our presentations told us about a variation between a formal process and an informal process, and both are relevant in different situations. It is possible for one or two of you that you say, I'm not sure how that happens in my area, and this would be one of the things we'd be encouraging you to go back and check if you are not sure at the moment. a look at what the guidance says. Our guidance defines management supervision as a regular one-to-one meeting between the line manager and the employee in order to meet organisational, service, professional and personal objectives. Professional objectives will be considered with input from the appropriate professional lead where that's necessary. Management supervision forms a key part of individual performance review. It underpins efficient, high-quality service delivery and includes workload review. Management supervision is clear and distinct from clinical supervision, which would not normally be undertaken by an employee's line manager. It's important at this point to stress that this process is a part of good management practice, and it's quite likely that it's already embedded in practice in your area. So part, if not all, of this session will be a refresher for many of you and will include some additional aspects about how to record and structure the process of management supervision where this is already in place. So let's have a quick look at the aims of management supervision. It's important to remember that formal supervision is recognised by regular, planned, private, one-to-one meetings that take place on an ongoing basis between a member of staff and their line manager. Even when line managers work really closely with their staff, it doesn't eliminate the need for these one-to-one sessions. But in addition to these formally planned sessions, it's normal to expect that there'll be discussions that go on about daily work issues, about problems, changes in policy that emerge in group meetings or unplanned ad hoc sessions. And matters arising between the formal management supervision sessions should take place informally like this and not wait for the next formal session. The frequency of management supervision sessions may differ between different areas and different people, but we recommend that sessions occur at a minimum of 4 to 8 weeks. They can occur at greater frequency than this when they're needed, and as we've previously said, they can occur informally whenever they're needed. So let's have a closer look at those aims. The first one is to ensure that staff have got appropriate support and that they can meet their objectives and they've got the opportunity to have continuing discussions between their PDR processes. The second aim is to make sure there's a forum for any issues to be raised either by the manager or by the staff member at an early opportunity so that these can be resolved. One of the basic aims of management supervision is to support and enhance communication between managers and staff and to make sure that staff know what's expected of them in terms of their objectives. This will help them to carry out their duties effectively and efficiently and will also ensure that any health and well-being issues related to work are discussed and addressed. Management supervision assists in CPD of staff and gives them the opportunity to discuss with their manager what professional development they need. It ensures and promotes equality and diversity between team members, and it ensures that good practice is taking place to manage areas where improvement is required. And of course, management supervision provides a great opportunity to discuss workload and caseload issues. Let's have a little look now at the interface between management supervision and clinical supervision. Management supervision will focus on the overall management of workload and performance and will ensure that the well-being of staff is fully discussed and the governance of the workload is covered. Clinical supervision, on the other hand, focuses on providing an opportunity for reflective practice and for development of clinical and technical expertise. It provides an opportunity for support and challenge in relation to clinical skills. Both of these aspects of supervision will normally be performed in separate meetings, but where there are links between the two, a joint meeting may be needed to consider the interface between the two. For example, management supervision will naturally combine operational and professional supervision when the manager and the supervisee are of the same professional background. When the operational manager is of a different professional background to the supervisee, management supervision should be a collaboration between the operational manager and the professional line manager. For instance, where a nurse is managing a social worker in a community mental health team. This collaboration can be via regular joint meetings and will focus particularly on issues such as job plans, caseload management, professional conduct, PDR, etc. It wouldn't routinely be the case that the operational and professional managers would both need to be present at every meeting. One of our other Listening into Action groups is currently developing a caseload tool. This will allow remote access by both the professional and the operational managers to caseload details and will help to facilitate this collaborative input and oversight. So, where can you get your hands on a copy of this guidance? What you need to do is you need to go on to SID, click on the tab that says Resources along the top of the screen, and then go to Policies. From Policies, you need to access the section that's headed HR Policies, and within that section, you'll be able to access a copy of the guidance on management supervision. The management supervision guidance provides a template on which you can record management supervision. However, it's important to note that you can record this in the way that feels best for you and your staff members, as long as you ensure that the records that you keep provide clarity about what's been discussed at the meeting and what has been agreed. The template that we provide as part of the management supervision guidance provides an example that you can use if you haven't got a current way of recording this. Here's a copy of the template that you'll find in the Management Supervision Guidelines. The people who came to the face-to-face sessions said that this would be useful to provide a structure for the Management Supervision meetings, and it provided a quick aid memoir of the areas that needed to be covered. Several of the people who came to the face-to-face sessions also said that this was a simple and easy way to record and provide evidence of the work that had already been going on in management supervision but had not been recorded in a systematic way. In this part of the presentation, we're going to have a look at the qualities for effective managerial supervision. For many of you who are listening to this presentation, this will be a refresher, drawing on skills that you already use in many areas of your management practice. Let's have a quick refresh and a look at the skills that you will be using. It's important to plan and prepare for management supervision sessions, and that applies equally to the supervisee and to the supervisor. The sort of preparation that we were thinking about when writing the guidelines was to have an environment that was uninterrupted and private, to have an agreed regular time at which the supervision would take place, that was diaried for both the supervisor and the supervisee, and that both would have a copy of the previous documentation so that there could be continuity between meetings. Management supervision should clarify tasks and areas of work that are current and that are upcoming. Therefore, it's important that both the manager and the supervisee are familiar with the areas of work that need to be discussed. It's important that an honest discussion of real issues takes place and that builds in an opportunity for reflective practice. So both manager and supervisee need to come to the session with an open mind and with an intent to discuss those things that are difficult for them and also to discuss those things that are going well. The skills that the manager and the supervisee will be using centre around active listening, summarising, and checking back that both have understood the meaning of whatever has been agreed. The manager needs to attend to the supervisee's needs, and particularly where there is some reasonable adjustment to be made, preparations for this to happen should take place in advance of the meeting. The approach to management supervision is constructive, building on skills and offering balanced feedback, both affirming good practice and helping the supervisee to recognise areas where improvements in practice may be necessary. The manager needs to be able to set clear targets with actions that are understood, recognised and accepted. And the template that we discussed earlier in this presentation provides an opportunity for these to be recorded. Managers need to make their own experience and expertise available to help the supervisee to develop, but at the same time acknowledge that they don't have all the answers and they may need to consider with the supervisee who else can help where the manager doesn't have the expertise in that particular area. From a management point of view, it's important that problems and issues that could be anticipated are raised early before these get serious, so that they can be dealt with at the most local level. Development needs and continuing professional development should always form a part of management supervision, and the aim is to support the person to aspire to be the best that they can be within their current role and to help them to prepare for future roles and developments. If there are conflicts or disagreements that arise during management supervision, then these should be recorded factually and accurately. And it's really important that both managers and supervisees do exactly what they say they will do at the end of the supervision meeting. Even the best planned sessions can run into problems, and by having a consideration of some of the potential barriers to effective supervision, managers can minimise the likelihood of this occurring. So let's just have a quick look at what some of those potential barriers can be. Inadequate preparation with a rushed agenda and unfocused session. Allowing interruptions. Focusing on performance management rather than focusing on development, particularly where criticisms are saved up and discussed all at once in a management supervision session. Having unclear or unrealistic goals that are set in management supervision can be frustrating for staff members, and where a manager is telling rather than listening, there will be little engagement from the supervisee. Where there is failure to offer constructive commentary on performance, morale can dip because they're not being offered a balanced feedback. And this can be interpreted as bullying and harassment, victimisation, if there isn't that balance in the session. Poor recording of supervision prevents there being continuity between sessions, and where emotional issues remain unaddressed, the depth of the session won't be achieved. So this has provided a quick run-through of some of the potential barriers to effective supervision, and as we said earlier on, the skills that a manager brings to a management supervision session are very similar to those that you would bring to any other aspect of management. We're going on now to have a look at a summary of the session. And to look at this summary of the session, we'd like to consider that you do 3 things. Consider 3 things that you've learned or refreshed from listening to this session. Think of 2 things that have relevance in your own area. And think of 1 thing that you will do within the next 24 hours that will ensure that these 2 actions that you've decided above will come to pass. Just take a few seconds to think about this 3-2-1 approach now. We'd just like to finish this session by suggesting some other resources you might be interested in that have a link to this topic of managerial supervision. As we've already said, the management supervision guidance can be accessed on SID. Additionally, the supervision policy is available on SID and covers wider issues around supervision generally. For those of you who already are or are planning to be clinical supervisors, we offer in-house training sessions at approximately monthly intervals over the next 12 months. For those of you who want to refresh your basic skills around listening, offering feedback, goal planning and action planning, please come along to a coaching approach to management, which is a face-to-face session associated with the people management programme, but open to other managers in addition. And for those of you who are part of our mentor pool or who want to join our mentor pool, we offer both face-to-face and distance learning materials in relation to mentorship in combined healthcare. This brings us to the end of this briefing session on management supervision. I hope that you found this useful, and if you would like any further information about anything that you've heard as part of this session, please contact the Odeon training team for more information on 652763. Thank you.